Euphoria Season 3, Episode 4 is basically what happens when every character starts paying the price for the life they thought they wanted. Not the fantasy version of it, the real version, the ugly version, the one where money, attention, power, and survival all come with a cost that hits harder than expected. And honestly, I think that is why this episode worked so well. It did not just move the story forward. It made almost every major arc feel darker. Hey, what's up everyone? Come back to Breakdown Epic. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Now, Episode 4 really feels like a turning point for the season because the theme running through almost every storyline is what people are willing to sacrifice in order to get what they think they need. Some characters are chasing money, some are chasing freedom, some are chasing attention, some are just trying to stay alive. But no matter which path they're on, the show keeps making the same point. Every shortcut has consequences. Every performance has a cost. And by the end of this episode, nobody comes out looking untouched. Let's start with Cassie, because her storyline might be the clearest example of that whole idea. After everything that happened around the wedding and Nate's debt exploding into the open, Cassie finally reaches a breaking point and walks away. On paper, it looks like independence. She leaves, she cashes out the ring, she gets her own place, she starts building this new image around herself online. And at first glance, you could almost read that as a woman taking control of her life. But the episode makes it very clear that what she is stepping into is not freedom. It is just another system where she becomes something to be consumed.
That is what made her scenes so uncomfortable. Cassie is not walking into a world that values her. She is walking into a world that values what people can get from her. And the more attention she gets, the more she starts adjusting herself to fit what that world wants back. Taking substances, pretending to belong in rooms she is clearly uncomfortable in. Letting someone like Brandon get too close because she needs the image, the clout, the exposure. It is all performative, but it is also dangerous. In my opinion, the smartest part of Cassie's storyline is that the episode never lets her new path feel glamorous for too long. The likes go up, the phone lights up, the photo gets taken. But emotionally, it all feels rotten underneath. Especially because the episode keeps reminding us that she is not in control the way she thinks she is. And I really liked the visual contrast between Cassie and Kitty. They are not living the exact same life, but the episode clearly wants us to see how close their worlds actually are. Kitty is in a much harsher and more openly exploitative environment, but both stories are about women entering spaces where they are valued less as people and more as bodies, as products, as opportunities for someone else. That parallel was one of the strongest things in the episode for me, because it exposes how different versions of the same exploitation can exist side by side. And that is why I think Cassie's ending here matters. She gets what she wanted on the surface, the attention, the numbers, the momentum, but it already feels like the beginning of something darker. My personal opinion is that this storyline is heading toward a mental and emotional collapse if she keeps measuring her worth through that kind of validation. Now let's talk about Rue, because her story in this episode was easily one of the most tense. Rue is now trapped from both directions. On one side, she has law enforcement closing in. On the other side, she has Alamo and the criminal world she stepped into. That means there is no easy escape anymore. She cannot simply disappear, and she can't afford to make the wrong move either. And what the episode does really well is show how exhausting that kind of pressure actually is. The DEA angle changes everything, because suddenly, Rue is not just surviving chaos, she is being forced to choose what kind of destruction she is willing to live with. If she talks, people could die. If she stays loyal, she could lose her freedom or her life. That is the kind of trap Euphoria does best, because it is not just external danger, it becomes a moral crisis too. What hit hardest for me in Rue's storyline was how she starts seeing the reality of the environment around her more clearly. The girls in that world are not being protected, they are being used. They are disposable.
And the scene where she watches Kitty through surveillance before speaking to her is one of the darkest moments in the episode, because you can feel Rue recognizing the system for what it really is. Not glamorous, not exciting, just predatory. That also makes her trying to help Kitty feel really important. It shows Rue still has that instinct to protect someone even while her own life is collapsing. But at the same time, that instinct may be exactly what gets her killed. Because in a world like this, showing too much conscience can be read as weakness or betrayal. And then, of course, the episode pushes her into an even more dangerous spot by tying her back to Lori through the safe and the robbery fallout. Once that happens, it feels like Rue has crossed another line. Whether she meant to or not, she has now put herself in a position where multiple violent people could see her as responsible for different kinds of damage. And that is why her storyline now feels like one of the most dangerous in the entire season. Now, shifting over to Lexi and Jules, I actually think this was one of the saddest parts of the episode. Lexi is one of the only characters trying to build something the slow way. She is trying to work, learn, move up, and make a place for herself without chaos being the center of her life. And because of that, every time the worlds of the other characters spill into hers, it hurts more. She is not built for constant destruction the way some of the others are. So when she gives Jules a genuine opportunity and it blows up in her face, that lands hard.
Now yes, Lexi may have needed to be more specific, that is fair, but Jules reacting the way she did just showed how disconnected she has become from structure, responsibility, and criticism. Instead of seeing feedback for what it was, she took it personally and turned the whole thing into a disaster, and the person who pays for that most immediately is Lexi. That is what makes this storyline so frustrating and so effective at the same time. Jules has talent, real talent, but she keeps choosing paths that distance her from the discipline and vulnerability required to actually build something lasting with it, and Lexi gets caught in the blast radius of that. In my opinion, Lexi is becoming the clearest example in the show of someone trying to live in a more grounded way and still getting punished just for being connected to everyone else. That isolation she feels from the group is becoming more and more understandable. Then there is Nate. He's not the center of the episode, but everything happening around him feels like collapse. He's losing his wife, he's losing the project, he's losing control. And what really stood out to me is how desperate he becomes once that business decision goes against him. He's not begging because of pride. He's begging because he knows what comes next if the money does not move. That is what makes his arc interesting right now. For once, Nate is not just emotionally toxic, he's vulnerable in a way that feels genuinely dangerous. He's cornered.
And when Nate gets cornered, that can go in a lot of different directions. Personally, I think his storyline is one of the hardest to predict because he could spiral downward, he could become more violent, or the show could push him back towards someone unexpected. But one thing feels clear, he is losing the life he thought he was controlling. So overall, I thought this was a really strong episode. What I liked most is how every storyline reflected the same larger idea in a different way. Cassie is selling an image. Rue is trading safety for survival. Jules is walking away from passion. Lexi is paying for other people's chaos. Nate is discovering that power does not mean protection forever. That thematic consistency is what made the episode feel so fluid for me. I will say this though, I still think the soundtrack has not hit the same emotional highs this season that it used to. Previous seasons had musical moments that elevated scenes into something unforgettable. This season feels a little weaker on that front. Not bad, just less memorable. But outside of that, I think episode 4 continued the season's momentum really well. It is messy, dramatic, uncomfortable, and fully committed to showing how these characters keep trying to reinvent themselves while actually sinking deeper into darker worlds. But anyway, that is my breakdown of Euphoria Season 3, Episode 4, and what I think the ending is really saying about where these characters are heading next. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which storyline hit hardest for you in this episode. Rue's trap, Cassie's spiral, or Lexi getting punished for everyone else's mess. I will catch you in the next one.